if remember that this is a conversation that we want to have today. So if you can, oh, it looks like we lost Miriam. You're having a hard time. I'll have to try again. If you're having, if in order to contribute to the conversation, you're more than welcome to have your microphone on. If you do have background noise, we ask that mute it until you want to jump and chime in with the conversation. And I just lost too. And if you don't have a microphone or camera, then there is a chat function that you can use as well. Looks like Amy's trying to connect your audio as well. Okay. If you are having challenges, sometimes you do need to pop out of Zoom and just pop back in. It's just the way the technology sometimes works.
Yeah, and let's be conscious of background noise too, please.
Yeah. And if I do notice background noise, many times I can kind of pinpoint who is unmuted. I will mute you, so you'll have to unmute yourself to come back in to talk again.
Yeah, don't take it personal. He does that to me all the time.
Yeah, especially if we don't see your face on the screen and I don't see you talking, then I don't know. All right. Hey, Carla, welcome in. So again, we do have the chat function. So let's start with the chat function. And if you could just in the chat, just go ahead and tell us where you're from, and just we always kind of like to know what time of day it is for you as well. If you're not in North America like we are, just so we have an idea of how late people are staying up for to listen to us. Okay. And Ross, I'm going to get you to kind of start off. And while you do that, I'm going to, just so everybody knows, we are streaming this to the group. Actually, I'm going to set that and get that going right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that, Ross.
So we've talked about this the last couple of weeks. This is kind of a new direction that we're going for our Fridays. We lost the ability to do the watch parties because Facebook discontinued that aspect of their services. So it is what it is. So we've been wanting to do something like this for a long time, and this is really, like last week's show, we did have some technical difficulties. That's why we're on Zoom now, because the Facebook Rooms program just had too many glitches. So we kind of primed the pump for today's topic, but it's not us, it's you. This is your opportunity to participate, to literally ask questions, or to give us your knowledge of the particular topic or subject that we're talking about. And this like last week, we started with one topic and then we ended with a whole different topic, which was great because it's like this is kind of a free ride. This is like, let's just get some stuff out there and talk about some of the stuff that excites us as well, but we haven't quite figured out where to place it in the live streams and the learning that we do.
Just because it's too random, right? And it needs to be a conversation.
Exactly. So you've seen the maybe some of the posts that we've been putting up the last couple of days is where we're talking about meditation. We're talking about the woman that was lost half of her brain and is still functioning perfectly. There's a man by the name of Thaddeus Gage, who was a scientific wonder because he had this giant rod that went through his head and out the top of his, went in here, came out the top of his head and went right through his brain. And the only thing that he suffered was the loss of vision in this eye. And so there's these oddities that happen that basically take the norm, whether it be in science or in society, and just throws it out the window. And I get fascinated with this because this is a lot about what we're teaching as well. Is we're like, listen, this is these are all these programmings and these assumptions. And when we look at some of these other stories, it's like, well, if this is the norm, then how come this even works? How could a woman lose at the age of 4 years old, have half of her brain removed because it was diseased, and now she's in her 20s and she's married and she, has had some she has some issues as far as maybe some of her movement and such, but overall, if you didn't know it, you wouldn't know it. So it's just like it just defies everything. And when we look at the power of meditation and what some of the very strict Buddhist monks and other different types of religions and practices, what they have accomplished with their bodies. I mean, they are scientific wonders, but they're not a wonder. They're more of an example of, this is where you can be. This is the level that you can be. They're just setting the standard different. So they're not super people. Maybe most of us are not super. Maybe because we just don't either know how, or we don't even know that those capabilities are even possible.
I mean, it's I mean, I've been teaching this for years and years and
Right.
years, that you are greater than you think you are. And that's just I mean, it's, no matter how great you think you are, you're greater than that. And that's really where this comes to, is that, well, how do we then access and display that? How do we bring that to the earth, and why would we want to, and how could we, and all those kinds of things come into play, when we have that conversation. So yeah, so it's a really, really cool conversation. Some of the things that when I was fairly young, I did a lot of research on, as I mentioned in the stream yesterday, a lot of research on brain potential and human potential and all that kind of stuff. And while I wasn't necessarily into the hacking side of it at the time, I was more in the, hey, wow, this is possible. And I guess you could say I was kind of, because hypnosis, in a sense, is kind of hacking. We're kind of communicating to the unconscious mind and getting a result, right? So it's kind of, so in a sense, we could say that. And in that research, I mean, when I heard that they had case studies of split personalities, that one personality had diabetes, and they'd switch personality, and within minutes they couldn't find a trace of diabetes in the
Yeah.
system. And that's in the same human being. So that tells me that we have the capacity to turn stuff off and turn it off. But they didn't have choice. They didn't necessarily have conscious choice when they switched personalities.
But it's still biologically possible, though.
Yeah. So how
That's
do we find the strategy to do that?
right. Exactly. It's like one of the posts that I did promoting today was that movie Limitless. I don't know if anybody has seen it, with Bradley Cooper, and it's one of my all-time favorites. And when I first started watching it, I'm like, oh, this is really kind of cool. Where he just he takes a pill and expands the capacity of his brain, and basically just makes it work more efficiently. Oh, that's really kind of cool. And then I'm just like, huh. I wonder if something like that really would work. I wonder if they really have stuff like this, And then I just started researching, and all of a sudden I just delved into the world of nootropics, and which are those little tiny pills. And I'm just, wow, that really is possible. So this screenwriter, took something that he heard about and just expanded on it. Now, granted, it was a little bit over the top in the movie, but I mean, it may be have been over the top in the movie.
Wait, are you meaning that Hollywood sensationalized something, Russ? Oh my gosh, don't
but
break my bubble.
but hey, but I mean, that's another rabbit hole, because if we go back to writers, like Jules Verne. I mean, Jules Verne in the 1800s was writing about nuclear powered submarines.
Mhm.
So maybe not, because a lot of times this stuff, just inspires, somebody who is an inventor or a scientist to like having the same question.
Yeah.
It's like, huh, I wonder if I could do something like that. If you talk to a lot of the big scientists, inventors and stuff like that, I mean, they say Star Trek, inspired me. It
Yeah,
just
and I think what
amazing.
I think what happens is that someone has some insight into technology and breakthroughs
Mhm.
way before we're even aware of it. And they
Exactly.
go, let's leak this into the society. So they start to get it customized to the thought process, to the idea.
Yeah.
And then when we put it out there, then there's a market for it.
Exactly. If you look into the studies of the future self that we're talking, there are, you know, tons of research and tons of literature out there where people, they really do, when you hear somebody, well, I was just, Tesla is a perfect example. He goes, well, because this information, these ideas just flowed to me. I don't know where they came from. They just came from out there into me, through me, and I just created them. And so it's very, very possible. I mean, Tesla's inventions are, not Tesla the car,
Yeah.
Nikola Tesla, but his inventions are becoming more and more prominent, in today's age. Wireless technology. He basically kind of created the first radio. He didn't get credit for it, but he created the first radio. And wireless energy, and pulling energy in from the earth, and using that to power a city or a town. And but you ask him, he says it just comes to me. That's all it is. So these are things that, same thing could have happened with Jules Verne, same thing could have happened with Socrates, same thing could have happened with Demonicus.
Yeah. Or even
um,
Da Vinci, right?
yeah, Da Vinci is an exceptional example.
Yeah.
He, a lot of the stuff that he created the designs for, but never, he just ran out of time, because I just don't have the time to he creates it, puts it on paper, does the blueprints, but to actually build it. However, you have students over in I think it was Florence, that just, they have these designs, and like, let's see if this is possible, and they built them, and they worked at changing nothing. Like, yeah, it works. Actually, it works better than the ones that we have today. So that's how a lot of this stuff works. And we have now, see, this is why we call it the rabbit hole, because now we have traveled down a whole different direction. But if we get back into the norms of what research and science, there's a, when someone says the research and the science proves this, there's a term, a phrase that they forget to add: as of today. Because we're constantly revising the science, because we're constantly revising what we know. As technology gets better, where we can take better images of the stars and in space, and we can take better images and see inside the human body better and better. It's like, 2 years ago they found two more organs in the human body. Two. Seriously? Well, yeah, we thought this.
And which organs? Sorry.
Yes.
Do you know which organs?
I do not recall the name of them. I could find it out for you pretty quickly, though. And northern, but they don't. I mean, just like the appendix, they're not really sure what these are doing. So the point is that there's so much that we know, but there's so much more that we don't know. And that's the whole premise of Down the Rabbit Hole, is that we know this, but look at all the stuff that we really don't know. and we won't know until somebody shows us something different. That's what Gary and I do on all the live streams. We're just listen. This is information out there. You just don't know about it. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It just means that we just we learned it. Now we're going to pass it on to you.
In the new organs, it was in Netherlands they discovered it, and they were parasalivary glands, and I think it was like in like 3 centuries is the first new discovery of human organs. That's 3 centuries. I mean,
so that's the one. That's the one where it's right by the spleen, I think. But they also found that there's like a sac that all of our organs is kind of encompassed in, and they where they thought that was just basically to hold them in place. That in itself is an organ.
crazy.
I don't know what it's called, and they don't really know what it does, because for all this time, this is only just a couple years ago, but for all this time, when they do autopsies and stuff like that, they just just kind of cut through it, and they think it's just a sac to hold everything in place. It's like, no, it actually has a purpose of some sort. It's crazy. And like Gary said, 3 centuries, 300 years. It's always been there, and science says, oh, we know everything. It's just like, well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to kind of question that a little bit. So there we go. And I still don't think that I haven't read lately that they've actually figured out what the appendix used to do, or maybe still does, but they just don't understand it. But they say it's, they say that we used to need it, but now we don't need it.
It's like rogue DNA. It's like,
well, but hey, I mean, that's we could have timed this perfect, because I was just about to say, then you have them saying, when they're reading, looking at the DNA in the human body, and they have the gall to say, yeah, well, this is junk DNA. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, really, nature doesn't make junk.
Okay, then in you, let's remove them.
Really. There's always that CRISPR technology. Let's just take it away from you. So sure.
And let's see what happens.
and that's that's to a certain degree kind of human nature, where it's like, well, if we don't understand it, then it must not be important. And that's just science by ego. But you have a lot of scientists who are just like, no, that's there for a reason. I'm going to figure it out. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday, is where, you have people who are born with these different, as they call them, superpowers, but these different capabilities in their body, because a particular piece of that junk DNA was actually turned on while before birth. Why? No one's really sure, but it was turned on so that they have, extra hard bones, or they have their blood carries more oxygen than the average person. And I use the word average person on purpose instead of saying a normal person. But and then you have the people. My favorite one was the people who have super eyesight. It's not that they can see further. There are a few people that can do that, but they can see more. There's different cones in the back of your eye, and those cones are absorbing different frequencies of light and color. And these particular people can absorb 100 million more hues and shades and tones of color. Can't imagine what they see. I just can't. I'd love to know. So don't know why. They don't know why it turned on, but the fact that it's there to be turned on, or it was created and used, and as evolution has progressed, nature has decided, I don't think that the human being needs to have this at this particular point.
So that's a great topic. So the other day I heard this thing. there's this set, and I should have probably made some conscious note of writing it down because it's really relevant. There are these set of grasshoppers. I believe it's in Africa. Don't quote me on where the location is, but there's a set of grasshoppers that you can look at them, and in their environment, when there's green grass, they function just like grasshoppers do. They eat grass, they do their grasshoppery stuff, right?
They hop, huh?
Yeah, yeah, right. And then when their environment goes into drought, right, they actually start to change. They change where their arms, their limbs go from out here and they come in. They start to become more streamlined. They start to become more aggressive. And they start to swarm, so they become locusts. The same set of, yeah. So the environment, and this is, I mean, it was when I heard it, it was like, oh man, that's totally epigenetics right there. It's the environment that starts to shift and alter what the DNA does for them, so that the next generation functions and adapts based on what's going on.
Yeah. It's like the cockroach.
Yeah.
Cockroach has been around for millions of years. If there's ever a nuclear war, the cockroach will survive because it can. It's the most adaptable species on the planet.
Yeah.
But they are adaptable. It doesn't mean that they have that aspect now. But somehow in their DNA, they just respond. They adapt very, 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 very quickly. It's crazy. So can we. So part of what we talked about yesterday is that there are ways to turn on those different types of dormant DNA that are in our bodies. Is anybody familiar with Wim Hof?
Yeah, has anyone here looked into any biohacking or psychohacking or any of that kind of stuff?
I was just wondering about vision through the third eye.
Okay.
They say that, I'm not sure but they say that they blindfold them and they show them things and they can still actually see what is there. That's
right. But they've gone through, Gary could probably know more about this than or speak better on it than I do.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing, is that they go through a regimen of practice and processes to build up that capacity to where they are probably, and I can't say for sure, but they are probably turning on a particular DNA strand. Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's that to me is on the level of what I consider soul hacking, because then it's a level of tapping into the part of you that's not physical,
right?
That can still be aware of your environment, your surrounding, those kinds of things, and connect with the physical and communicate through it. And so Umi said that Umi says I often do the Wim Hof breathing, which is awesome. Okay. Why don't you tell us some results with the Wim Hof breathing? I've done a little bit of it, not a lot, but I've heard amazing things about it, and the potential of it. And it's definitely something I do want to look into more myself as well, because I've been kind of on Wim's radar for probably about 2 years now.
Yeah. Umi, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't know if can you jump on the microphone? I don't know if you have that capacity.
So I've looked at, I have not gone and done any of his courses, but I've read about them. And it's a similar thing to where, as I was talking a little bit about yesterday, is that in order to, in most cases, to activate some of this dormant DNA, you have to stress the body. And you have to
maybe a better word, Ross. We need to expand the body beyond where it was, or where it was. I think stress has these negative connotations, because we need to step out of what we're comfortable with to get to the place where we realize what.
And that's it. That's how that in this case, that's exactly how I'm defining the word stress, is that you're putting pressure on the body to where it's like, I either need to adapt very quickly, or I only feel like I'm going to die, because it becomes more of a survival. So in the Wim Hof, what I've read is that again, it's a slow process of putting that pressure on the body, and then the body starts to react, and so it's activating. I've watched videos of Wim Hof where he's in the mountains,
He's
wearing shorts.
He's an example of.
Yeah, and there's 4 feet of snow.
Yeah, I saw one where he's I think he's got the longest time underwater in freezing cold water.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly. So he has pushed his body and activated something inside that has allowed him to do that, and he can do that with other people. He's like, no, everybody can do this.
Yeah.
Because you just have to, again, it's not like you're just going to go today and go jump in, an ice bath for a couple of hours.
Ross, let's add him on the list. I don't think we have him on our list.
He might be. I'll double check.
Have you ever heard of?
Gary's talking about his list. He's talking about people that we're going to interview for you guys.
Yeah, so we're actually putting together a list of people we're going to have, and maybe would that be actually good to bring them even into the rabbit hole, because that opens up a whole can of stuff. Okay.
We're going to bring in David Eagleman, because I've done 2 interviews with him on synesthesia. He's a neuroscientist. That's his specialty.
Nice. Bren, what were you going to say?
Have you ever heard of Kriya Yoga?
Briefly, but I haven't looked into it.
Yeah, I practice it a bit. And what it is the tense and release of the body. You go through your body and tense and release. And then there's some exercises. There's meditating as well. But it activates, like, especially you find areas in your body where sometimes you go numb.
Yeah.
Or you have numbness, and it just brings that life force.
Is that based on the relaxation response? Because the relaxation response is a method that was used. I don't know. I learned it about 20 or some years ago. It's a hypnotic process where, to get into a trance state, what you do is you focus on different body parts, and you tense, and you relax. So you're teaching the body, instead of this, you want this. Instead of this, you want this. Instead of this, and you do it through all of the body parts.
It's probably similar, but maybe just, a lesser version of it.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it is quite amazing. Like, you have to practice on a regular basis, but a lot of people are not in their bodies; they're in their minds, and so this, it helps you get into your body.
There's a trainer by the name of Peter Egoscue, and I do a lot of his work, and he works mostly with athletes. And because it's kind of a similar type of thing where he does what's called movement therapy, where you're doing this. He's like, why am I doing this? He goes, because your body does not know how to talk to your toes anymore. It's forgotten, because you don't use them like we used to use them, because we wear shoes.
In marketing, we call it banner blindness. It's there all the time, so you just don't even notice it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what it is. And you have no idea the problems that people have. I fixed with his process, I fixed my right shoulder after an accident by adjusting my left ankle. And literally, when I stood, after I did everything, I'm like, oh gosh, I should not have done this. This was not a good idea. And then I stood up and I felt my body just go, because everything is connected to everything is connected to everything. And
Right.
if one thing is out of balance, the body will compensate for that. But then that means it has to take something else out of balance. And then now this is out of balance. And so now this has got to compensate to get this into balance, try to balance this out. And then it just starts this chain reaction. And it can go to, there's actually a pattern of how the body will do it. And that's how, he's like, oh, no, you got, it's your left ankle.
Who is that, Ross?
Peter Egoscue. Here, I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, great.
And while we're on the chat there, I've been meaning to get to it, but we've been on conversations here. So First of all, Carla said that ICU in Great Britain is a program to teach kids how to actually read blindfolded, which is pretty cool. I've been hearing about kids reading, not just blindfolding, but I'm trying to think of probably back in 2003, maybe 2004. I heard about there were some kids down in South America where they were teaching them all these kind of unique type things. And one of them is where they had this teenage girl, and what she would do is she would come into a room where she didn't know anybody there, and they would sit her at the front, and they would have people in the audience pull out a picture from their wallet, bring it up to the front, and all the while the girl's blindfolded, by the way, I should say. So she comes in, she's blindfolded, completely blindfolded. The audience member would offer up a picture, and the facilitator would take the picture, put the picture under her foot, and she would describe what's in the picture.
Wow.
It was, I mean, that's next level stuff. I mean, you know, she could do it with newspapers. She could do it with and she could read titles of like headlines. It was ridiculous.
How old was she?
She was early teens. She couldn't have been more than 16. Yeah.
That's like I mean, that's almost a version of remote viewing.
A whole different level, because she wasn't in any trance. She was just she was fully alert, just and she would have conversations with it. And then and there was others. There's some kids that could do it with their palm, on the back of their palm. So they just had with elbows. They were using different body parts to show that it didn't, and it was crazy. I mean, hold on. I think I know. Drunvalo Melchizedek is the one who kind of brought all this stuff to it, and he does Flower of Life stuff. So I don't know if you know Flower of Life technology, but Drunvalo Melchizedek, and he used to do these workshops back 20 years ago. And he would kind of have these special kids come out every now and then in his workshops and do that, and it was just mind-blowing.
Did he create these?
No, he was just
for
this what they call super kids, and he's found them all over the world. It just happened to be that one workshop happened to be in South America.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, that's pretty cool that they're doing that actually as a program in Great Britain. The other thing I wanted to mention is Umi said that a lot of people are getting better endurance, and a lot of them are much calmer, even those who are severely depressed, and that's from the Wim Hof breathing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But taking an ice bath, yeah, that would take care of my depression too.
And totally change your focus.
Exactly. You kind of forget about everything, and that's actually probably part of the process, is that you're so focused on that you forget about everything else.
Well, it's part of the. I think it's part of that biohacking system. I mean, yeah. I know that Tony Robbins does that, and is a strong promoter of that, and the science around it and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And like I said, it's the only thing to stop it. I mean, I like the idea of the benefits. I just think, is there another way? Because my Jamaican blood just says, I just don't want to be in cold.
We talked about this yesterday. When I was a kid in northern Minnesota, I mean, most of the people that I grew up with were, came over on the boat from Norway, and that was their thing. Was you would have a lake in the wintertime, and right at the edge of that lake you have a sauna, and you're in that sauna for 30 to 60 minutes.
Sure, we do that up here in Canada too in wintertime. When we have snow outside, we'll have a sauna outside, and we'll do the jump out. And I mean, I don't do it, but I see people doing it.
Everybody does it once.
I've done it.
But it's really, really good. It's very good for your metabolism, and what's one of the reasons in my belief is that, that people of that descendants, they maintain their youth, and they have much longer life, and they look younger longer.
Yeah.
And because
Yeah, so it's undeniable. I just haven't gotten there yet. So, but it is something that I did. That's
I've
on my
tolerated
list.
colder weather and things like that for a long time, but as things have progressed, I'm like, not quite as tolerant as I used to be.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in
It
Edmonton.
might be a choice as
I
well.
grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, and our winters, it wasn't uncommon for us to get to minus 40 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. I
And
remember
so when I left Edmonton, I was like, okay, I've had enough cold.
So my brother lives up in northern Minnesota. He has a couple hundred acres up there, and he's always, just come on over and I'll give you just 30 acres, and we'll just, everybody will be here. And I'm just like, dude, and it's always around the holidays, and it's like, what's the temperature right now? Oh, it's 10 degrees. It's not a problem. It's a warm 10 degrees. What's the wind chill? Well, it's not always windy. Like, okay, but what is it now? Well, it's minus 30 degrees. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to happen. Yeah.
So what is Wim Hof breathing? I've never heard of that.
So
Can
Wim
you
Hof
explain?
he has a specific breathing method that he takes people through to really flush toxins out of the body and fill it with high oxygen. And so there's a specific method. I mean, he's got tons of stuff on YouTube, so you can definitely search his stuff and get more into that. And like I said, I don't know enough about Wim Hof stuff to proclaim that I can give you the instructions on it yet. It is on my radar and has been for a couple of years. It's just hasn't moved up enough in the list of things I'm covering and working on yet.
Yeah, definitely look it up. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Listening to him.
So he does the breathing, but he's called the Iceman, right? And because he has this capacity to withstand ridiculous amounts of cold weather, cold temperature. And so if you search, there's a bunch of stuff. He's got a whole program that's focused on his breathing strategy and stuff like that as well. So
yeah. Now, when he says he withstands cold weather, it doesn't mean that he's like in a parka. He's in shorts.
Like bare body. Yeah, he's like
in shorts.
Yeah.
And I think the shorts are just because there's a camera on.
Mm-hmm.
But he is just in shorts, and he's not doing this, nothing. He's just,
in fact, I saw a demonstration where they measured his body temperature. I can't remember how it went. Something like they measured his body temperature and dropped him into some super cold water. Mm-hmm. His body temperature didn't change.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They've done those with monks or
and yogis and for sure. Yeah. And that's another example. I mean, because when you see these examples of these monks and these yogis demonstrating what the human body capacity is or has, I mean, it makes you wonder. It's like, well, okay, well, yeah, sure. It took them, 40 years of meditation to do that, but they did it. There's got to be a faster way. Right? Mm-hmm. There's got to be ways to streamline that. Right. And my thing is that I look for ways that we can do it naturally without the incursion of pharmaceutical medication. And I'm not opposed to teacher plants. So there's that option too. But that to me is a natural way. It's not something that's fabricated, right? And teacher plants are, things like ayahuasca and certain types of mushrooms and different things like that, which tap into a different level of your awareness, right, and your capacity. And so that's on the side of the psycho-hacking and the soul hacking side of things, and exploring that aspect, right? Because there's the physical part of it where we notice physical changes, but then there's a psychological where you're starting to become aware of a whole different spectrum of things.
Right.
Yeah.
And to, for going along again with Wim Hof, to be able to not just tolerate that coldness, but for it not to damage his body. For him to come down from one of those mountains without frostbite.
Yeah.
or to come out of such cold water without any type of damage to his body. That's the part that fascinates me. I mean, beyond the fact that he did it.
And again, it's, you know what, there's, I mean, it's based on cryotherapy, right? So
Right.
and there's like, it's not a new thing. I mean, people
No.
have been doing it for a long time. Athletes do it all the time. You know, like high level athletes, Usain Bolt, Floyd Mayweather. You know, when there's you know, I'm into mixed martial arts because I've been a martial artist for many years. And you know, they have this show called the Ultimate Fighter series, and in the Ultimate Fighter, you'll see what they do is it's like a reality thing. And while I don't watch a lot of TV, you know, when they have the Ultimate reality show on called the Ultimate Fighter, they show their training regime, what they do and what they go through and stuff like that. And at the end of it, you see them dropping into a bowl of ice, and that's how they're, you know, they're getting their body to heal faster. So it's not a new thing. It's just his method, and with his breathing strategy and how he's kind of come together with this breathing pattern, which again in and of itself isn't brand new either. It's just his packaging, just like with what Ross and I are doing. What we're doing is not necessarily in the larger sense brand new. It's how we package it that's unique and different and creates the results that we get.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Have you heard about that frog? I don't know if it's true story, but it like kind of is dead for the winter, and then when spring comes, it's alive again. Is that true?
I don't know.
A lot of animals. I mean, a lot of animals. That's a form of hibernation. So a lot of animals that can reduce their metabolism to where it's almost as if they were dead. I mean, if you literally put your ear, you know, up against them, you know, you wouldn't be able to hear a heartbeat. But if you use technology, you'd be able to sense a very, very, very faint. Now, amphibians are a lot different than mammals, but they just resuscitated some worms that are 35,000 years old, and they were frozen in the Siberian permafrost. And now with climate change, a lot of that permafrost is melting, and so these things that have been frozen for so long are, you know, are accessible. They're seeing them, they're finding them, and along with some of the DNA they're finding in some of the like mastodons and things, that they were frozen so quickly and such deep freeze that that their some of their DNA is still viable. They just found, I just read this last week, they think a princess and one of her maidens or something like that. Perfect. They were huddled up, and it looks like just a cold. They just got caught in the elements. They're completely huddled up, and you could look at them. You can barely tell that they were dead. You know, a little bit. You know, the skin is, you know, but the skin is completely intact and such. So there's a good possibility that there might even be some DNA in there. But I know for sure that they just resuscitated 35,000-year-old worms. So it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Well, did you ever hear of the little girl in Saskatchewan that was frozen and then they thawed her slowly?
No way.
Really?
Yeah, oh God, I don't even know how many years. It's probably 10, 15, 20 maybe years ago. She was 18 months old, and she opened the door and went out into the winter. And she was frozen, and somebody found her and they took her to the hospital, and they actually, I'm not sure the process, but she is alive.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I have a very good friend whose daughter, she was 3, and she got through the gate and fell into a swimming pool, and she died. She was dead for 20 minutes, and now she's doing very, very well. And she had brain death, and they actually took her in. And this isn't hacking. This is full blown science technology.
Hmm.
But they did stem cells. They gave her stem cell injections in her brain.
Hmm.
And the brain just started to rejuvenate itself. She's still having some difficulties, but therapy is kind of taken. She still has to have some treatments, but
I still consider stem cells as a form of hacking. I mean, it's just understanding science and it's hacking what's in the body, right?
yeah. I mean, I look at it, you know, in my definition, hacking is something that you and I can do today in our living room, or kitchen or whatever. But yeah, it is a kind of type of form of hacking. But at the same time, that process probably would not have worked had she been older. Just like the example I gave with the girl with that had to have half of her brain removed. If she had been older, that probably wouldn't have worked. But when you're at that age between, oh, Gary, it's between one or newborn and 7 years or 5 years,
Up
the
to 7.
brain is developing so much
Mhm.
that you know, you can do a lot of different things to it, because and it can just rebound because it's developing, and it's so plastic, and there are just, you know, it's saturated with stem cells. So does everybody know what a stem cell is? You've heard of them. A stem cell is simply a cell in the body, but it's a neutral cell. So in other words, it hasn't been programmed to be a brain cell or a muscle cell or a skin cell. It's just a
It's in
cell.
the choice convergence point.
Exactly. So like the placenta and the umbilical cords are loaded with stem cells. One of the things that they recommend, if at all possible, is that when a baby is born, to take the cord, at least the cord, and put it into a deep freezer, because that is their raw data. That's their raw program. And then if that person were to have, say, get cancer in their 20s or 30s, they could access that cord, pull out that very person's stem cells, which are the best. Those are the best, the most powerful, and reinsert them and give the body a 1,000% better fighting chance. Now we can take stem cells from the body. They come from two different places. One from the bone marrow in your hip, very painful, because when you're using when you're doing anything with stem cells, you cannot use any kind of anesthesia whatsoever. So it's like somebody is sticking a needle through your hip and then puncturing that bone and pulling the stem cells out of the bone marrow. Then that's the best. And then the second best is actually they can create stem cells from your fat. So they can pull fat from, you know, around your midsection and such. Those are not as strong or as potent as the ones that come from your bone marrow. But again, you can use, I mean, they're using stem cells for healing, for you know, very, very bad injuries, for regenerating skin for burn victims. I mean, the sky's the limit. And I mean, stem cell technology is a huge industry, but it's going to be even bigger as soon as more and more of this is, for the lack of a better term, made legal. So, for example, my friend with his daughter, he had to take her to Panama because they wouldn't allow it in the United States. It was still, I mean, it's just a phenomenal facility.
When was that, Ross? Because I know there's a bunch of practitioners that are using stem cell.
They are, but though they can use stem cells for, like my Sherry goes to
For like joint, like
for joints and things like that. Yes.
Yeah.
So and those are the ones where they're taking them from the fat.
Got it.
The fat cells. But it's all very more of the cosmetic kind of stuff. You
Mhm,
can inject stem cells into, like, you know, into the knee, and it'll help revitalize cartilage and things like that. But to go in and actually repair organs or into the brain and stuff like that, that's not legal in the United States at this point.
Got it.
Yeah, but other countries it is. And at the same time, you have to do your, you know, your due diligence on the facility that you're using, just like one of my favorite shows is called oh, Botched, and it's two plastic surgeons, and their specialty is helping people with botched plastic surgery.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
I'll have to check that out. I've never.
But to see what doctors have done to some of these people, what they've injected, where it's like, well, they injected silicone into, to give me better cheeks, but it wasn't pharmaceutical silicone, it was construction silicone, and so it's, but again, I got a great deal. I went to Mexico, or I went to someplace here out of the country because it was cheaper and all this kind of stuff, and it was just like, oh, you're just looking at these people, it's like, yeah, they didn't do their due diligence on they just went off a price, and sometimes there's a reason that it's so cheap. But anyhow, it's a fascinating show. It really is. I'm not a big reality show, kind of like you. I'm not a big reality show kind of a person, but I caught one of those shows and I couldn't stop watching. I just couldn't. It was like a marathon of it, and I'm just like, my Sherry went shopping and she came back, and I'm still watching this show. She goes, "Are you okay?" I was like, I can't stop watching this show. This is fascinating. It's fascinating from a medical point of view. It's fascinating from the technology point of view. But for me, it's really fascinating from the psychological point of view of the people who just, have had so many surgeries because, they have, what's it called? Amorphism? The people who are just obsessed with plastic surgery.
It's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So again, going off on this rabbit hole, I was just watching something today where there is a spree or a lot more cancer that people are having, but it's all in their rear ends because people are having more and more cosmetic surgery and implants in their bums.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's causing a lot. They're having this huge uptick of cancer cases.
That's interesting. I actually thought years ago that would be a thing because people are putting cell phones in their back pockets all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought that would have contributed, but that's interesting. That's the plastic surgery thing.
Yeah. Well, that's. I mean, I think it could really be maybe a combination of the two. I didn't really actually think about the cell phones.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
what's that?
What do you think of about cell phones and how close they are to your body and stuff? What are your thoughts on that?
I have watched, walking down the street, for example, this isn't probably in my case, or opinion, the worst is you see the women with the hijabs, the head wraps, and they have the cell phone is stuck between it like this. So it's wrapped, it's tight right here. And they just walk with them like this and they can talk, but that thing is right there. And I just want to just go up to him and just take it out. I was like, no, don't do this. Get a headset. Having your cell phone in your pocket or in your coat pocket near your heart, anywhere where it's close to the body is nothing you should.
On a micro level, it's gonna have an impact, I believe, anyway. Absolutely. And I think you may not necessarily notice it right away. And I think future generations may notice it more than we will. Because it's on a micro level, and the body's capacity to heal and rejuvenate and generate and deal with that kind of junk is phenomenal. Otherwise, we wouldn't survive as human beings, right? So I think we have levels of resistance to it, and I also think that there's a lot of variables here, right? When we're talking about the body, it's not just one thing because there's so many functions that can contribute to something going one way or the other, right? So, for example, I believe that someone who is doing other hacking of psycho, spiritual, and physical, and they're doing optimization of those things won't get impacted as much. right? But if someone's already in a state where their body is in decay, it is in decline, and those things are added to it, it's going to make those even worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you know, and definitely, like Ross said, you know, skin to skin contact. Absolutely. I think that based on the research I've done and seen and looked at, is something you shouldn't do for any extended period of time. And different phones actually have different levels of damage that they can do.
And so do different headsets
Yes.
as well. Like for example, the Apple AirPods, their latest AirPods, those are the most powerful wireless headsets around, but they're also the most damaging.
I wasn't going to mention Apple, but they're also, their phones also have the highest level of decay from the radiation to your skin as well, from all of the phones.
So there's a gentleman I follow for a long time. His name is Dave Asprey. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him. Gary, you've heard of him, right?
Dave who?
Dave Asprey, Bulletproof.
Oh yeah, Asprey. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I've been fascinated by him because he doesn't just, you know, and he kind of created the term biohacker, and he was one of the people that I followed after I kind of got into it. But anyhow, so he tests virtually almost everything that he talks about. He has tested on himself, and he's, you know, he has the funds, he has the facility to really get into the nitty gritty. So anyhow, he is in his house, when he had his house built, he had his house built with a copper everything infrastructure. So you have the framework of the house, and then everything's wrapped in copper. So you can't get any EMF. The copper will, it's like a Faraday cage. It'll just, it'll EMF waves, microwaves all from around his facility will not enter into the house because he's basically built it inside a Faraday cage. Faraday cages that, you know, when you see Nikola Tesla in those photos where he's got the electricity going around him, like he's inside of a cage. That cage is made all of copper, so that that energy can't penetrate that copper. So it's a natural barrier. So anyhow, he has a pair of pants that he had made, and he had and they have the hip pockets, and he had the hip pockets lined so that he could keep his cell phone in his pants without putting it in his back pocket like everybody else. He puts it into these lined pockets, and he always uses the left pocket more than anything else. And after a year, he went in and had a bone density test between his right leg and his left leg. And even with the lining in his pants pockets, the bone density of his left leg was like 10% less than the right leg. So that's just the bone. That was just the femur where that phone was always sitting.
Yeah. And there's technology out there now that can help you to kind of block that EMF out. I mean, on my phone, I've got these little holographic things that they energetically block the frequency from coming in and creating damage. So, and they've been around in different formats and different price ranges and stuff like that for years. I mean, the first one I used was probably back in 2000 or 98, something like that.
Yeah.
99. And I've been using them on every phone I've ever had. I've always found some company that has some process of blocking the EMF.
Yeah, they're even coming out with clothes now that will do it.
Yeah.
Especially with the advent of 5G coming in. 5G is going to be a much more powerful electromagnetic wave, and that
not the 5G that we're going to talk about in a few weeks in our stream.
Exactly.
We're going to talk about, because our 5G in the Infinity Matrix is a whole different thing.
Yeah. So you don't wear our 5G. You are our 5G.
That's right.
So that was good. But yeah, I mean, there's caps you can buy, there's coats you can buy and such. But that technology, nobody really knows, because 5G really, you hear a lot about 5G, but it's only in very, very small areas across the world. that actually have the real 5G.
That we're told about. I mean, because I think there's a lot of distraction going on, and it's being implemented. Is my belief, anyways.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you are driving in a downtown area and all the you've seen things just don't look quite different, that things have been replaced. Like if there's a street in your town or city that used to have trees on it, and now those trees are gone, that means that they're either already put in the 5G towers or they're getting ready to.
Because trees block it, right? They get in the way of that transmission getting out the way that it needs to.
Dude, rain blocks it. I mean, seriously, 5G doesn't work in the rain. So I think we're safe in Seattle.
Yeah.
For sure, but and it's kind of one of those weird things. It's like, so you guys are, putting all of this money and all this technology into something that can easily get blocked by a rainstorm. Okay.
Yeah.
But,
which, if in dangerous situation, you need it.
exactly.
It's an emergency. Jeez.
5G is coming, and it's not really just for your cell phones. I mean, there's a lot that's going to be attached to it. That's why they needed to create a more powerful or use a more powerful electromagnetic wave, because it needs to carry more data. But with that, if the 3G and the 4G are already having a biological effect on us, I can't imagine what 5 and 6 are going to do. So,
and I have heard from some sources that the 5G in and of itself, if tuned differently, can actually be okay. It's just that they haven't figured out how to do that yet.
Yeah, they need to expand the wave, because right now 5G is a very, very tight wave, and what they need to do is they need to expand that wave so it's not.
It's a matter of tuning it so it's more in alignment with our physiological body, and as opposed to what it currently is, and their capacity to do that, especially on a large scale, isn't quite there yet. So
right. Yeah. So yeah. So when it comes to technology, in my opinion, less is more. People who have smart homes, I mean, there's a lot of good things about it, but at the same time, there are a lot of studies saying that, you should even turn your Wi-Fi off while you're sleeping. You shouldn't have your phone next to you while you're sleeping, because you're asking all of this energy. You're telling this energy to come in while you're sleeping, and your body is in a different mode while we're sleeping, which is another rabbit hole that we're doing. So.
One more question.
Sure.
I like to do my video chats and work on the computer on a big old screen. It's quite large.
mm-hmm.
I can see it really well.
The real deep ones, you mean? Like the old fashioned?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's fairly deep. Yeah.
Okay.
Not this thin little thing.
Okay.
So is that bad? Like, should I do more stuff on my phone because it's not as much?
Well, your computer screen is not, it's not pulling in. It's connected to your computer by cord, right?
Right.
So no, I mean, that's actually better than your phone, because your phone is pulling all that energy around you. As to where if it's wired, I mean, like, for example, the best set of headsets for when you're talking on a phone are a wired pair of headsets. Those are actually the best for you, because you don't even have the Bluetooth energy that's coming in towards your head, being focused here. So no, I mean, any type of a screen that's wired is better for you, as far as radiation is concerned. Now, the quality of the image is going to be substantially different, probably.
Yeah, and then with the screens, I mean, it's more of the light that it emits, right? That you want to be aware of it, how that impacts you and stuff like that. And so let's kind of wrap up a little bit. We've gone a little over time, but I just kind of wanted to kind of explore, just kind of throw out there, because again, the rabbit hole is really designed to have us kind of expand our thought processes and think differently and explore different things and whatnot. So when it comes to biohacking or hacking in general, we talked about cryotherapy stuff. There's also what's called red light therapy. And red light therapy is it's low emissions of red light that's used on the skin to regenerate the skin, things like wrinkles, scars, those kinds of things. And it's being used more and more now. There is some controversy around it, but again, any hacking, there's controversy around to some degree. And but I think they call it RLT. I think it's been around since about 1990. I think I remember first hearing about it, or around there anyways. But they used it and when I heard about it, they were using it in space to grow plants, right? That was the light they used. And it helped to promote growth and the photosynthesis of cells and stuff like that. And since then, they've started to bring it over into the application in medicine and increasing the energy inside human cells and things like that. So that's a whole other realm of stuff, that could be a conversation around the hacking piece of things. And then the yoga you were talking about, and then the relaxation response is what's called compression therapy. It's where you're putting your body into the system where it flushes out the toxins, right? It flushes out those things, and that's more in alignment of compression therapy. There's another one, and I heard about it. I haven't really done a lot of research on it. It's OsteoStrong. It's a place where you go, where you work on the bone density, and there's stuff you can do to increase bone density and have longevity in the bone density. They've got a website, OsteoStrong it's called, and they've got a whole process that they do specifically for that. And I think they got locations that they do it as well. It also seems pretty interesting. But again, like Ross said, what we look for is things that anybody can use. You don't have to go to a specific place. But when you look at the technology and what they're doing and the result it's getting, that's when you can kind of say, okay, well, how can I then do something at home? How can I do something in here, to kind of generate those kinds of things? Even stem cell. I think that there is, when I was, I would say probably at about 2010, maybe a little earlier, I was really looking into using hypnotherapy to really turn on, they call 12-strand DNA, where you could actually use hypnotherapy processes to go in and actually turn on different strands of the DNA, right? And so I think that, that if even science can go in and do something to shift, alter, and adjust, like stem cell, to adjust the body, then there's a way that we can do it too, right? We just don't know how yet. We don't have that technique or strategy. And so that's the exploration that I look at. Okay, what aspects of, how can I do something in the realm of my thoughts or my actions, or, the food, how can I do something like that to naturally stimulate my stem cells to heal what it needs to do, and utilize my thought process to direct to where it needs to go, and that combination of things, right? And all these quote unquote technologies or hack processes out there, they give us examples of what's possible, right? Another one that Ross and I do on a regular basis is intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting is a great body hack.
Very much.
And there's all kinds of that should be a whole other topic in and of itself, because there's so many. I've been doing intermittent fasting for probably a good 7-8 years now.
Yeah.
And there's different ways you can do it for different reasons and stuff like that. There's more and more doctors and physicians are seeing that, oh my gosh, people can heal themselves, people can get this kind of result. They're catching on, and it's starting to become more of the norm, even though those that do it get like in anything else, they get, bombarded with crap from media and other doctors that are not in alignment with it and stuff like that.
Well, but that, Gary, that comes down to the fact that, I mean, fasting is something that's been around for centuries.
Forever. Yeah.
And maybe they didn't know why that they liked it back then. And maybe we know better what it does to the body, but regardless, they did fasting because it's like, yeah, I feel a lot better now. And the fasting, intermittent fasting, people think, oh, it's a diet. Well, no, it's not a diet. It really isn't a diet. It's just good for you. It's just the way the body, it's working with the body's regular rhythms of how it works. In my opinion, I mean, it just we both do it. It makes you feel good. It's still, I've talked to some people when I did a lot of diabetes coaching, like, well, I'm gonna do this and then I can eat all the garbage that I want. No, that's
it's the lifestyle you're living. That's what you want to think about.
It's like, this is not a justification to eat a Big Mac.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the mindset of, I'm gonna say 50% of the population. It's like, okay, so if I do this, then I can do this. It's like, no, you really shouldn't just do this part at all. It should just go away. It's not good for you. And yeah, what happens to your body when you're doing intermittent fasting? What happens when you're doing a 24-hour to a 48-hour fasting? Gary, did you finish your master class?
I did 7 days because the timing of it just didn't work out because I had.
It can be a challenge.
Well, I had the last part of it would have fallen right into my daughter's birthday, my wife's birthday, Easter, and it was just too many things.
That's how we plan ours.
Yeah, so Mo and I my wife and I are actually starting on Monday again, and this time I'm going for a full 30 days.
Okay, all right. So that's the master cleanse.
Mm-hmm.
That's fasting on steroids. It's beyond. I mean, I use the master cleanse, which is it's kind of a form of fasting, but I use that to heal my body when nothing else worked. Western medicine wouldn't work, naturopathic medicine wouldn't work, and my naturopathic doctor just said, okay, well,
I am going to fast for a month.
For a month?
Yeah,
that time of
in Ramzan.
Ramzan, right?
It's obligatory for every
Muslim.
Muslim, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That wasn't my intention. Like, I'm not Muslim, but it just happened to work at the same timing because you guys started.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you what is the date of it started with the moon when we saw the moon and in the 13th and 14th March. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, April.
Yeah.
This month only 2, 3 and 4 days.
Yeah.
Then we celebrate Eid also. Gary within Rose. On Zoom, we celebrated Eid at Zoom.
Yeah. What is your family?
He's a Muslim that celebrates Easter.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it. It's not this or that, my friend. It's this and that. So enjoy life as you can. That's good for you.
The atheist that celebrates Christmas. I got it.
Yeah.
Shiva, what is your fast consist of?
We ate little bit early before the sunrise, and we eat something after the sundown.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're only with it. They can't eat. It's after sundown. You can't eat, right?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So that's a form of intermittent fasting. So that's yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they do
we cannot eat meat even and drink and all that.
Yeah.
Total fast. Only on air.
Yeah, air and water.
Yeah. No water.
Oh, no water? What do you mean you can't have water?
Yes, no water. Nothing. Nothing means nothing.
Oh,
but only during the fasting hours.
Time frame.
Yeah.
Okay, after the fasting hours, you can drink your water.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, which is kind of what intermittent fasting, except intermittent fasting, you can have water. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's great.
Means it's a very beautiful feeling.
Yeah.
It's a peace and calm and all that. We connected the means Almighty God and all that. Whatever you told, it's energy.
Yep. Yeah, and I definitely, for me, when I do fasting, there's
Yeah, try it, Gary. Matlab, whatever it's on, it's a very beautiful peace of mind.
Well, no, I do. I've been doing fasting for many years, and when I do the intermittent fasting, my intermittent fasting, when I do it, I usually do only a 4-hour window of eating. So I'll eat only within a 4-hour window.
Okay.
And I don't eat for another 20.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll do that for 2 weeks at a time. Right, that's the longest I've done it.
Very
I
good.
do longer, but I've done it for 2 weeks at the longest. Because, and again, it's part of this whole hacking, right? For me, I've conditioned myself to food to be just. It kind of is an inconvenience for me. It gets in the way of me doing things. So it's not that important.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
I don't get hung up on, I got to eat, or it's this time. I out the door where I can go cold turkey tomorrow and not eat for a length of time and not have an issue.
Yeah.
So that's but definitely more clear and focused, have more energy.
Yeah.
You can feel your body in the healing and rejuvenating and refreshing process. I mean,
Yes.
Fasting is a really, really great thing.
Really.
And but within it, I think it's important to understand that not everybody can get into a fast. Not everybody.
Yeah.
There is a mindset that comes with it.
Correct.
It can make it hard, or it can make it easy. And and that's an understand. You need to understand that when you're doing, especially if you're starting out and doing fasting for the first time, for example, if you've never done it before.
Yeah.
Or let me reframe that. If you didn't categorize it and call it fasting before, because we've all done it to some. I mean, you've all been in a scenario where you got caught up in something all day. Oh, I forgot to eat, and you realize the last time you ate was like last night. Well, that was fasting. You just didn't call it that, and you didn't do it for an extended period of time, right? So it's not that you can't do it. It's just you condition yourself to think that you have to eat at a certain time or for certain reasons and those kinds of things. And so then you get emotional and the body reacts and responds. Once you understand all those pieces, what's his Fong, I think his name. There's a doctor in
Jason Fong.
Jason Fong. There's a doctor in Ontario, Canada that has a book. It's an audiobook as well on fasting. And it's a great book as an introduction to fasting and intermittent fasting. And he's one of those doctors that uses it for healing all kinds of cool things that you said you can't heal. And he's really breaking the mold for it in Ontario, Canada. So definitely check his stuff out and get more information on it. Don't jump into it blindly, because then you may fail and say, oh, it doesn't work, it's not for me, and all that kind of stuff. I guarantee you, once you start to look into it and you start to do it, I have my 18-year-old daughter that does fasting with me every now and then, and because she's an athlete and super smart in school and all that kind of stuff, and it gets her back to grounding, gets her back to more of a whole place, right?
Yeah.
Fasting is a great hack and something everybody can do, and you can grow and build. Because when I first started doing intermittent fasting, there's you can do it where it's called a 16/8 or 18/6. I can't remember which number they start you off with, where you do 16 hours off and then 8 hours where you can eat, right? So you can then shrink the amount of time that you eat, and then go to 7 hours window. Then you go to a 6 hour, and then you can go to a 4. And there's times when I've gone a full 24, and I'm like, I'm okay. I don't really need to eat today. And so it's the beauty of, I find, intermittent fasting is that it's completely flexible and dependent on where I'm at.
Right.
can start it up when I want to, stop it when I want to. I can extend it if I want to. I can shrink it when I want to. But I'm going into that state where my body gets into ketosis and does what it's supposed to do for this cleansing and detoxing that happens.
Yeah, and the great thing about it as well is that the longer you can go without eating, the more benefits you're actually getting. What your body starts to do is it goes into kind of a stress version. The body does, not your mind, because your mind becomes very clear, very, very clear. When somebody goes, "Oh, I'm doing a fasting, I can't think straight," they're doing it wrong and such. But it becomes very clear, and so it starts to become, your body becomes more efficient. Okay, so it starts, it's like, I don't need this, I'm getting rid of this. And it just starts purging the things that it's just like, yeah, I'll take care of it later. Yeah, I'll take care of it later. Now it's like, oh crap, I need to get this stuff out. I've got to get all of this garbage out of me so that I can become more efficient, because I'm not getting fed the way I'm supposed to be getting fed. The body's very simple. It has a very simple mind per se. And it's just like, I'm not getting fed. That means I have to go into kind of a starvation mode where I'm going to become very, very lean. I'm going to start burning the fat that I've been storing for this particular reason. That's why we store fat. Fat is just energy to the body.
Primary reason. Yeah.
That's all it is. Okay. We just give it too much energy. Okay. That isn't in congruency with the amount of energy that we're expelling. Is as simple as I can go, is how the body feels that. But it just starts getting rid of the thing.
I heard one intermittent faster say that the body has so much, the average North American body has so much fat in it that they have enough energy to walk from Detroit to California and not eat in the whole time if they were just burning energy.
I would agree with that. I would agree. But your body also has its own self-image. It has its own blueprint.
Yeah.
So which is primarily why most people fail at diets, or then they go through a diet. Oh, I lost my 20 pounds, and then it comes back with a vengeance because they failed to change the body's own image of itself.
And again, which comes back to there's all these variables, right? It's your self-image, it's your belief, it's your fears, it's all these components. And so the hacking and they try to getting all these from the biohacking side of things, there's so many different aspects that it's important to look at. That's not just one thing, right? It's looking at all the variables and trying to create your own specific combination that works for you.
Right.
There's also a thing called functional music, which is a cool thing I've just started to kind of look into, where there's specific music designed specifically for certain functions. Where you can have music specifically for, evoking emotions, specific emotion thing. And it's something that movie makers really tap into. Right, where they have certain music at certain times to elevate and increase the emotion on certain things, and to know that there is specific what's called functional music out there that you can look for if you want to stimulate and get the certain emotions going, and to be able to hack that and condition that. So that's a whole other topic on the psychological side of music and the impact it can have. And then even gratitude is a hack, right? Just having gratitude and doing gratitude journal. In our 7-day success hacks program, on day 3, we talk about the questions that you ask yourself and how they can start to shift, alter, and adjust your moods and your options and your choices and stuff like that. And one of them is gratitude, and doing gratitude journal, which gets you into your whole body into a whole different mind frame and state of being, and can be a powerful hack for healing, for attracting things, for all kinds of things. Right. And to have that as a regular ritual that you do can be very powerful. And then we come to, which we started this whole rabbit hole on, which Ross started talking a little bit about, was supplements and things like that, where you have these things that can actually go in and help the body with that process when you're doing all the other things.
Right.
Yeah.
And supplements are just that. They're supplements. You still need to eat properly. But as many of you know that, you know, we don't get the food that we process so much now. I don't mean just the stuff that comes packaged. I'm even your fresh vegetables that you get in the grocery store, in the grocery aisle and such, you know, doesn't have the nutrient content that it used to have, because it is processed. It's just this rapid processing of going. The fertilization processes are not what they used to be. So everybody utilizes vitamins and minerals differently in their bodies, and you know, I strongly recommend at least once a year to, you know, have those levels checked, so you know what you may or may not be deficient on. I do it once a year, and it's just sample of my hair. They can do it through my hair, so it's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's
it.
That's a good rabbit hole. Good.
That was very good.
And so we're going to be on this every week this time. You do need to re-register the same link, but you need to re-register every week just so we know and how many people to expect to show up. But it's the exact same link. Just go there and just re-register for the next week, and come and join us. And we're going to ask that, you know, when possible, jump on, have some conversation with us. As you see, when Bren jumps in, when, you know, Maria, last week you jumped in, when we have people jumping in, and even on the chats, it just makes it that much more dynamic, because we really, really don't want this to be the Gary and Ross show.
I thought it was the Ross and Gary show.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, seriously, I mean, that's the backbone. You are the backbone of this. This is why we want to do it this way. We didn't want to just have something that, you know, we're going to get on there and you know, talk at you again. Because we
doubled our on live viewership, so which is awesome.
Yeah. So and that's the whole idea, is that this is your show, and we'll prime the pump. But as you can see, we primed the pump and we went down a different rabbit hole. And somebody last week was asking, why do you call it the rabbit hole? It's because a rabbit hole goes down and then it branches off. And you can kind of go down this way, you can go down this way, and sometimes they meet in the middle. And that's what we want. We'll just kind of keep going. And if somebody wants to steer us back to the original topic, because that's what brought them here, great, then we'll steer back
and
up.
Metaphorically, in the Wizard of Oz, it's the portal to different realities, right?
Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, Alice in Wonderland. Yeah.
I love it. I love the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz is a whole nother rabbit hole. But yeah, we'll take, you know, we can go in and Hector's not on today, is he?
No.
Hector brought us into, you know, the world of plant medicine last week, and it was fascinating. And so it's like, great, this is cool. So if you have something, you have ideas that you would like to see us maybe, you know, prime the pump with, you know, put them in the comment section, or I am one, Gary or myself. Just say, hey, can we talk about this on you know, one of the next rabbit holes or whatever? And it's like, yeah, that's a good possibility for sure. So we think these up generally about a week ahead of time, so that we can
Well, we've got a list of them. We just
decide what we're going to. So we look at the list and we say, yeah, let's, you know, the live stream is this. We could
try to tie it in. Yeah.
We try to tie it in, but it doesn't have to. We have no rules with what the rabbit hole is supposed to be, except that it is a back and forth between you and us.
Yeah.
You know, we want the interaction. And so that's all I've got. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and rest of until we see you next Thursday on the stream and here again on Rabbit Hole.
Enjoy.
Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.